You are listening to Uncomfortably Creepy. Let's begin. Watcher in the Woods. This was possibly the weirdest encounter I've ever had. It happened after I dropped a friend off after a late night of films at my flat. The route to and from her home back to mine was straightforward. However, on this evening, there were roadwork cutting off nearly all routes back to my home. I must have circled the only open roundabout about 10 times before deciding to take an exit that I knew eventually connected to my town. This exit went through an isolated and rural area, which meant my phone's network and mobile data stopped working. I'd grown up not far from here and had driven through this area before during the day, so I felt up to the task. This area had a large woodlands. I was aware these woods had developed a reputation for being dangerous after dark. Initially due to drug deals, but in the last few years due to a series of stabbings that had gone unsolved. They're still unsolved, I think. They're not the kind of woods anyone could or would want to camp in overnight, or spend time in generally. I wasn't quite sure if I had a sharp turn or exit incoming, and so I drove very slow down the road. I'd only been going for about a minute until something clanged against my car. Not that I hit something, no, something struck my car while I was moving. I stopped my car immediately and pulled over to the side of the road. I debated getting out to check the damage, but chickened out. It was past 2 a.m. I was parked next to a dense woods, and like a horror movie, too much to be too silly. I adjusted the side mirrors to check the damage, and luckily, I had parked under a streetlight, so could see fairly well. I needed to know what damage there was and potentially take pictures for my insurance. Oddly, there was a screwdriver on the ground a few feet behind my car, right where I had heard the clang, sat out in the middle of the road. I didn't have time to take pictures because something caught my eye on the other side of the road, in the woods. The streetlights on the other side of the road lit up a few feet into the woods, and under that yellow light, something had moved. I'm not sure if he moved or turned around, but that's when I first noticed him. In the woods, just a foot or so back from the road, was a man. I could see his detail in the streetlight and remember it so clearly because it was so weird to see another person at that time of night in such rural and isolated place. He had his back to me. He was mid-height, wore a black leather jacket and dark blue jeans. He had a pale white skin and a reddish hair. He was stood still and his posture was very upright. His hands were by his side, unclenching and clenching, and he kept his back to me the entire time. His head was positioned like he was looking straight ahead in the woods, but it just looked pitch black from where I was sat. There were no other cars parked or even driving by on the road, besides this man and me in my car. The road and the rest of the woods looked empty. Before he could turn around or potentially throw something else, I sped out of there, side mirrors all askew. When I checked my car in the morning, I did have a new scratch in the paint, as well as a slow leak in the tire. But frankly, that'd been the last thing on my mind when I eventually got home that night. I wonder what would have happened if I had got out of my car and examined the damage. I can't rationalize why anyone would be standing in those woods at 2 a.m. with his back to me. To the random stranger who probably threw a screwdriver at my car and turned your back so I wouldn't see your face, let's not meet again. Now I pay for parking, preferably in a garage with lots of light. I haven't always made the best decisions. I can be quite impulsive, impatient, and above all, cheap. Such decisions have left me in some questionable situations, but despite my propensity for being absolutely stupid, I'm still kicking, and that's what really matters. The circumstances of my deceptiveness had led me down a few interesting roads, literally and figuratively, and one of those roads is the one in which I decided to park on a cool fall night. For a bit of context, this story happened a few years ago in a large American city during the Kia carjacking TikTok craze. Naturally, just before the craze begun, I traded in my total 2010 BMW for a 2020 Kia It was about 2 weeks after the trade-in the USB cord became crime paraphernalia set to target my specific vehicle. Seriously, poor timing. I was in college living with a couple of other girls, and one of my roommates and I were desperately needing a night out. A new, very popular casual restaurant has opened in a different part of town. Being the only one with a car and with poor public transportation access to the area, I drove one of my roommates and a friend, female, early 20s, over to the area where the restaurant had opened. It was still light out, but traffic had been bad getting over there, and we were hungry, so when we realized the parking garage was full, I decided I'd just go find a place to park on the side of the street. For a bit of context, in the city, there are areas that go from super ritzy to yikes very, very fast, and I parked right on the cusp. I parked right in front of a row of older townhouses a few blocks from the restaurant. I jokingly told the others that I would remember this for next time because it's free parking. Spoiler, I've never parked there again. There were a few cops down the street, a ways with the lights going, but this isn't super unusual. So I locked my car and we began to trek for food, assuming we would be back within an hour and before the sun fully set. The joke was on us. The line wrapped around the building, so our quick casual dinner at a new restaurant turned into a 3-hour wait for some mediocre greasy food. But by the time we were walking back, it was well after dark. And the crowds we'd walked through on the way there all but dissipated. By the time we got away from the restaurant, I quickly realized my parking mistake as a very obviously strung-out man began following us. He was yelling something illegible at us, but the drugs had left him rather uncoordinated. So we picked up the pace and put a sizable distance between us and him. The mood lifted after we lost him. The third girl with us had apparently been entirely oblivious to the situation and was utterly confused as to why we had begun nearly running. Frankly, I'm really glad we encountered that man because perhaps it put us a little more on edge from when we encountered the bicyclist. None of us noticed him at first. He was a scrawny guy, but young, no helmet, and dressed in all black, to include a black backpack. He was standing on his bike pedals and focused straight ahead, but that isn't what really stood out. What really stood out is that the bicyclist had started making large circles around us. I can't say for certain when it first started or when it clicked the same guy had made several sweeping circles around us. But gradually, as we made our way towards my car, the circles became smaller and smaller, almost as if he was hurting us. This was not some drunk, strung-out junkie on the sidewalk. It was calculated. We turned onto the street where my car was parked, and with the onset of night and a noticeable lack of street lamps, the neighborhood no longer simply looked old, it looked forgotten. My car was in sight now, and our jokes had long since cascaded. We were moving as a collective as quietly as we could towards my car. I had my keys out and was about to hit the unlock button so we could run the rest of the way to my car. I had it planned in my head. Get to the car before the cyclist got any smaller. But wait, what had just moved beside my car? I couldn't exactly see what was beside it, but from the faint light cast from the nearby porch lamp, I could tell there was something beside it. Thinking quickly, I moved my thumb over the lock button because I knew it would cause my car to flash lights and honk. This was enough. A 6-foot, roughly 200-pound man, dressed in all black, shot up from beside my passenger side of my car and began to run towards a nearby townhouse. But he wasn't alone. There was someone else, a second large man waiting for him on the porch. About the same time, the cyclist peeled off from the circles, and with much shouting, he began to sprint towards my car. I didn't realize my Kia could make such a tight turn, but the U-turn I made peeling out of that parallel parking job, with my friends screaming to go, 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 must have been peak in my automotive career. At the time, we were throwing out theories about what these men wanted. Was it our bags, something in the car, us? Surely not our leftovers. What would have happened if I had just been two of us? What if I had been alone? I scoured my car that night for any signs that it could have been tracked or followed. There was nothing. Looking back, I highly suspect they were going to try to steal my car or possibly more likely my tires, though that didn't really explain why they were on the passenger side or why the cyclist was circling us. Maybe they saw us climbing out of the car and had kept tabs on us all night. I'm not sure, and I don't really want to be. I am sure of one thing though. To the person crouched beside my car, let's not meet. A man in a truck chased me for blocks. Attention, fellow female runners/walkers. I feel compelled to share an incident, so maybe someone can learn from my mistakes. This took place in/around my neighborhood. I was taking an evening walk with my son. I live in Florida, and the heat can be unbearable during the days. So during those hot months, my daily ritual is taking an evening walk. I shoot for before sunset, but sometimes it's later and already dark. Mistake number 1. Nothing good happens after dark. I left around 8:30. Initially my plan was to be out for a brief 30 to 40 minutes, but my son is the slowest walker in the world. So around 9:30 I noticed a big gray truck. Extremely loud, extended cab, diesel I think, with big red letters along the side. A work vehicle, but I couldn't see the name of the business. All that was legible, because I wasn't trying to stare, was roofing in red. He also attempted to stay behind me at all times, making it difficult to see the business name and his license plate. As I increased my speed, the truck matched my pace. When I stopped to let the vehicle pass, the driver would abruptly slam on the brakes. I would turn down a street, he would do the same. This cat and mouse game went for several more blocks, making me feel nervous and vulnerable. I should have handled the situation differently by seeking help. My phone was dead. Using the flashlight on our long walk drained my battery quickly, so we couldn't call for help. Mistake number 3. At first, the truck having a business name on the side gave me a false sense of security. I assured myself nobody would be that stupid and commit a crime with their work vehicle. Something that stands out can be so easily tracked back to them. His windows were tinted very dark, so I didn't know how many people were in there. I'm coming up to my street, but I do not want him to know where I live or chase me inside an empty house. So instead of heading in the direction of my home, I quickly turned around and walked to a dead-end street, and he slammed on his brakes and put it in reverse and quickly turned onto the same street. I stayed close to fences and buildings along the grass. I walked to the end of the street with him right behind me. I couldn't go any further, so I just stopped and wanted to see what was going on. We stood there for like 90 seconds until I heard a car door open. I picked up my 65-pound son and I ran as fast as I could run, in shitty flip-flops. I was screaming help as loud as I could, but nobody came out. Mistake number 4. I should have screamed fire. I ran towards the main road I had just been on and ran down a different side street. He flies in reverse, squealing tires, gets back to the main road and turns on the street I ran towards. And again, I stay close to buildings, away from street lamps. I found some hedges and bushes where it was dark and crouched down low so we could fit in the small gap. My kid is autistic and is really starting to freak out. He grunts and claps when he's anxious/excited, very loud too. When I heard the truck getting closer, basically on the other side of the bushes from us, maybe 40 feet away, I had to cover my son's mouth with my hands. I felt so bad, but my son was so loud, he doesn't understand. I have no doubt if his truck was normal sounding, he would have heard us, but luckily it was so loud. The truck reversed back into the main road, still in reverse, driving slow, scanning the area to figure out where I went, I assume. Thankfully, my dumb decision to wear dark clothes for the night walk worked in my favor, making it hard for him to spot me. After going in reverse for 30 seconds, maybe longer, he put it in drive, still driving slow or stopped. At this point, I can't see him, just hear him. There are trees, bushes blocking him from our view. After another 30 to 45 seconds, the guy finally gave up, its loud engine fading off into the distance. I didn't hear him for like 5 minutes. So my son and I came out from hiding and hurried home. I truly felt like I was gonna have a heart attack trying to open my front door. I just felt so vulnerable. It It's something I've never felt before and I never want to feel again. Although I deeply regret not obtaining the truck's license plate or calling 911 in the moment, I have thought about it a lot since and will always wonder if there was a bored redneck just messing with me or he was planning on doing something sinister. I don't ever leave on walks after dark or with my phone battery less than 40% now. Y'all stay safe.